everyone, I Dr. Megha Mishra welcome you all to the Swayam online course on conceptual dependencies in knowledge representation and reasoning. In the last lecture, you all have got the basic overview of the course. In our previous lecture, we have gone through semantic network and frame representation. Semantic networks include frame based representations, are valuable tools for organizing and representing knowledge in certain contexts. However, their suitability depends on the complexity of the domain being represented and the specific requirements of the application. Now, coming to today's lecture, in this we are going to learn about conceptual dependency, conceptual dependency building blocks, conceptual categories with disadvantages and their advantages. Conceptual dependency is a theory aimed for representing the meaning of natural language sentences by emphasizing two key aspects. Firstly, it seeks to enable the extraction of inferences from the sentences, offering a framework for manipulating relationships between primitive concepts to derive additional insights and conclusions. Secondly, conceptual dependency differentiates itself by asserting that its representation exceeds the original language of the sentences. By focusing on fundamental conceptual content and relationships, conceptual dependency aims to provide a language independent representation of meaning, contributing to the development of natural language understanding systems and influencing subsequent approaches to semantic representation. Shanks, in 1975, conceptual dependency theory emerged. Shanks' conceptual dependency theory emerged within a natural language commanding project. Shank proposed that sentences could be distilled into fundamental concepts represented by a concise set of semantic primitives. This theory, known as conceptual dependency, permits the combination of these meanings signifying primitives to construct representations of more intricate and elaborate meanings. In essence, it offers a structured framework for breaking down sentences into elemental building blocks and then reassembling them to the comprehensive meaning they convey. Rogers Shank work introduced the terms conceptualizations to refer the underlying meaning propositions in language. His project aimed to achieve the representation of meaning in an unambiguous language free manner, as articulated in 1973. A foundational principle of his approach is that any two statements, regardless of the language they are in, which convey the same meaning, should be characterized by a single conceptual structure. This principle emphasizes the completeness and consistency of the conceptual representation across languages, underscoring Shank's vision for a language independent and comprehensive understanding of meaning. In Shank's framework, three fundamental types of concepts are identified: nominals, actions and their respective modifiers. A nominal represents an abstract or concrete object that evokes a mental image. For instance, cars represent tangible objects. while gravity embodies an abstract notion. Nominals prompt the formation of a mental picture or image, contributing to a visual representation of the concept. This visual aspect is often referred to as a picture, capturing the visualizable nature of nominals within the conceptual structure. In Shank's theory, another elemental type of concept is the action, which can be defined as what a nominal does. An action represents an activity or behavior typically performed by an animate nominal, which impacts an object. Actions can be further categorized into two types: primitive actions and derived actions. Primitive actions are the basic foundational activities, while derived actions stem from the combination or modification of these primitives. This classification enables the representation of various levels of complexity in behavior and provides insight into the dynamic interactions between concepts within the conceptual structure. Within Shank's framework, the third elemental concept is the modifier. Modifier play the role of enhancing or altering the meaning of nominal or an action. They can either modify a nominal by providing additional details about it or specify how an action is carried out. In this way, modifiers contribute to the precision and depth of the conceptual representation by providing contextual information or characteristics related to nominal and actions. By capturing the relationships between modifiers, nominals and actions, Shank's theory offers a complete means of structuring and understanding the complexity of language and its underlying meaning. In first example, a blue car is associated with a picture modifier or adder or PA. This means that the representation of the blue car concept can be enhanced or added by a visual component, potentially a picture, to provide a clearer understanding of the concept. In second example, here the phrase "he quickly ran" is associated with an action modifier or adder. This indicates that the understanding of the action described, ran, can be improved or clarified by an additional element, which in this case might be an adverb like quickly, that modifies the action, providing more detail about how the action was performed. In both cases, the modifiers or adders help to refine the representation of concepts, making them more precise or enhancing their clarity within the conceptual structure. Conceptual dependency theory is a model of language understanding that proposes the meaning of a sentence constructed through the interaction of conceptual primitives rather than being directly tied to the words in the sentence. These conceptual primitives are abstract building blocks that represent the underlying concepts and relationships in a sentence meaning. Conceptual dependency theory suggests that the meaning of a sentence can be broken down into a set of conceptual primitives which are not tied to any specific language. These primitives represent concepts such as actions, agents, patients, attributes, and more, instead of focusing on the individual words in a sentence. Conceptual dependency theory emphasizes the relationships and interactions between these conceptual primitives. The theory proposes that different languages can express similar meanings by using different combinations and arrangements of these conceptual primitives. This provides a more flexible and language independent way of representing meaning. Overall, conceptual dependency theory seeks to explain how humans understand and generate language by focusing on the abstract conceptual structures that underlie linguistic expressions. While it has influenced the development of various natural language processing models. It's important to note that the theory has also faced criticism and has evolved over time as our understanding of language processing has advanced. In Shank's framework, he introduced the idea of conceptual categories and their interrelations, which he referred to as dependencies. These dependencies describe how different elemental concepts or categories relate to each other. The three elemental kinds of concepts are propositional phrase, action, path abstraction, and action abstraction. Prepositional phrases. This category includes concepts related to spatial and temporal relationships. Prepositional phrases often provides information about the location, direction, time, or manner of an action. Action. This category involves concepts related to actions, events, or activities. Act concepts represent the things that happen or take place in a given scenario. Path abstraction, that is PA. PA concepts deal with the path or trajectory followed by an object or an action. They help in describing the route or path taken during an action. Action abstraction, that is represented by AA. AA concepts are more abstract and encompass higher level description of actions or events. They provide a way to generalize actions beyond specific instances. Shank's theory emphasizes how these conceptual categories interact and depend on each other to represent the meaning of a sentence or scenario. For example, an action might involve a specific path which is described using propositional phrases. The notion of dependencies in Shank's framework refers to the relationships and connections between these conceptual categories. These dependencies help in understanding how different pieces of information come together to form a coherent and meaningful representation of language and experience. In a dependency relation within linguistics, each element or item in a sentence assumes either a dependent or a dominant role. This results in hierarchical connection known as a governor-dependent relationship. This relationship is partially ordered, implying that there is a hierarchy or ranking between the two partners. The dependent element relies on the dominant one for its meaning and function, and its interpretation is often framed in the context of the governor. A governor, on the other hand, can stand alone with independent significance and may or may not have dependents of its own. Significantly, a governor can also be a dependent within a larger structure, showcasing the linked nature of these roles. Prepositional phrases and actions inherently assume governing roles in sentences, framing the context for other elements, while path abstraction and action abstraction are inherently dependent, relying on other elements, particularly governors, to provide context and meaning. This interplay of dependencies and governance underpins the structure and interpretation of sentences, reflecting the intricate dynamics of language understanding and communication. To form a meaningful concept, there must be a minimum of two key elements called governors. In the sentence, Shelley stroked her fat cat. The word Shelley representing an object and stroked representing an action are the governors. Shelley serves as the name of the object, while stroked denotes the action. The interaction between these governors constructs the idea of Shelley performing the action of stroking her fat cat. This illustrates how the combination of governors gives rise to an understandable concepts, highlighting the relationship between an object and an action. In the sentence, Shelley stroked her fat cat, both Shelley and stroked are essential for creating a meaningful concept. There exists a reciprocal dependency between these two elements, Shelley and stroke. This means that the understanding of Shelley relies on the concept of stroke and vice versa. The cat belonging to Shelley cannot be fully conceptualized without the action of stroking, which is an inherent part of the sentence. This creates an objective dependency of the cat on the action of stroking. In essence, the interplay between Shelley and stroked establishes a coherent and complete conceptualization, demonstrating the intricate relationships and underlie language understanding. In the sentence, Shelley stroked her fat cat. The conceptual dependency represents could be something. The conceptual dependency representation could be something like action is stroke, agent is Shelley, object is cat, attribute is fat. So, here cat is the governor or central concept for the modifier fat, which means that fat is an attribute that is being associated with the concept of cat. In terms of the relationships, we have indicated that Shelley is performing the action of stroking on her cat and the cat has the attribute of being fat. Conceptual dependency theory aims to capture the underlying semantics of sentence by representing the relationships between concepts, actions and attributes. For the sentence, Sally stroked her fat cat. Further using propositional dependencies and creating a conceptual dependency network. In this analysis, the verb stroke governs the direct object cat. The proposition her indicates possession linking Sally to cat and showing that it's Sally's cat. The adjective fat is connected to cat, describing the type of cat. This kind of analysis illustrates how different elements of the sentence are interconnected in terms of concepts and relationships. Example 1, John took the book. John is objective case, the one performing the action. The book is again objective case, the direct object of the action. Example 2, John took the book from Mary. John is objective case, the one performing the action. The book is objective case, the direct object of the action. Mary, recipient case, indicates the recipient of the action or the source of the book. In both examples, the objective case is used for the subject John and the direct object the book. Additionally, in example 2, the recipient case Mary indicates the source or origin of the book. In conceptual cases, the instrumental case typically relates to the means or instrument used to accomplish an action. In example, John ate the ice cream with a spoon. The instrumental case can be applied. John is nominative case, the one performing the action. The ice cream is accusative case, the direct object of the action. And spoon is instrumental case, indicates the instrument used to perform the action of eating the ice cream. In this case, the instrumental case highlights the tool or instrument spoon that John used to carry out the action of eating the ice cream. In conceptual dependency analysis, the sentence John drove his car from Guildford to London can be broken down as action, agent, object, source and destination. So, here action is drove, agent is John, object is his car, source is Guildford and destination is London. In terms of the directive case relation, we can think of the source and destination concepts. Source is directive case, that is Guildford, the starting point of the action. Destination is directive case, that is London, the end point or target of the action. These conceptual dependencies help to represent the directional relationship conveyed by the prepositions from and to in the sentence. Let us taking few other examples using conceptual cases. Sentence, this is Sally's cat. Sally's is genitive case, indicates possession, showing that the cat belongs to Sally. Sentence, Sally is in London. Sally is nominative case, the subject of the sentence. In London is locative case, indicates the location where Sally is situated. Sentence, the glass contains water. The glass is nominative case, the subject of the sentence, and water is objective case, the content being held within the glass. These examples illustrates how conceptual cases are used to convey different relationships and roles of nouns within sentences. Let us analyze the underlying acts in the sentence. I took a book from Shelley using conceptual dependency. Here action is taking, agent is I, object is a book and source is Shelley. In this sentence, the underlying act can be described as taking, where I is the one performing the action of taking and the object being taken is a book. Additionally, the source or origin from which the book is taken is Shelley. This sentence represents the transfer of ownership or possession from Shelley to the speaker I. In conceptual dependency, the sentence I took a book from Shelley can be analyzed as the primitive act is take, wherein the agent I performs the action on a primitive conceptual category book. The source Shelley indicates the origin of the action. The conceptual tense is past due to took. The diagrammatic convention employs an arrow representing the action of taking from the agent to the object. Finally, the act involves the agent I performing the action take on an object book sourced from Shelley, establishing a past context. Here are various primitives act in conceptual dependency theory along with their corresponding elaborations. These primitive acts represent fundamental actions or relationships that help to describe the meaning of sentences. The act include actions like transferring abstract relationships, that is trans, moving objects physically, that is p trans, applying force to objects, that is propel, moving body parts, that is move, grasping objects, that is grasp, taking in objects, that is ingest, expelling objects, that is expel, transferring mental information, that is m-trans, constructing new or old information, that is m-build, conceptualizing ideas, that is producing sounds, speak, and focusing sense organs, that is attend. Each act's elaboration provides further context and explanation for how it relates to the conceptual understanding of language. In conceptual dependency, the sentence I gave a book to Shelley comprise the underlying act of give with I as the agent initiating the action, book as the object being transferred, and Shelley as the recipient receiving the transfer. This act embodies the essence of transferring ownership or possession, illustrating how the speaker gives the book to Shelley, thereby encapsulating the core dynamics of the sentence meaning. Underlying acts in conceptual dependency theory is categorized by their type. Here is a brief explanation for each category. Transfer of an abstract relationship, that is A trans. This category involves actions that signify the transfer of abstract relationships like possession. For example, include give and take, where ownership or control over something is passed from one entity to another. Transfer of the physical location, that is P trans. Actions in this category indicates the movement of an object from one physical location to another. Examples include go and come, where the object's position changes in the physical space. Transfer of mental information, that is M trans. This category encompasses actions that involves the exchange of mental information between individuals. Examples include ask and tell, where one person convey information to another. These categories help to classify the underlying acts in conceptual dependency theory based on the nature of the actions and the relationships that they represent. Propel. This category involves actions that result from applying physical force to an object causing it to move. Examples include push and pull, where objects are moved due to force being exerted on them. Move. Actions in this category describe the movement of a body part of an animal initiated by the animal itself. An example is kick, where an animal's body part is propelled outward by its own action. Grasp. This category encompasses actions where an actor physically holds or grabs an object. Examples include catching and clutching, where an entity seizes or grasps an object in some way. These categories further illustrates the variety of underlying acts in conceptual dependency theory and how they can be classified based on the nature of the actions and relationships they represent. Ingest. This category involves actions related to an animal taking something into its body. Examples include eat and drink, where an animal consumes substances for nourishment or hydration. Expel. This category covers actions where something is expelled or removed from an animal's body. An example is crying, where tears or substance are expelled from the body as a form of emotional expression. Ambuilt. This category involves actions where an entity constructs new information by processing existing knowledge. Examples include deciding and inferring, where new insights are formed based on previous information. Speak. Action in this category encompass communication through the production of sounds. An example is talking, where an entity convey information by vocalizing. Attain. This category covers actions where an entity focuses on a stimulus by directing a sense organ toward it. Examples include seeing and hearing, where an entity actively engages with sensory inputs. In the realm of conceptual dependency theory, the notion of conceptual tense stands as a tool to globally modify the interpretation of an action's temporal context. This becomes evident when examining a specific instance like John took the book. In this case, the past tense took communicates that the action happened in the past. When referencing the lemma, take, the base form of the verb, a transformation from take to took occur, signifying the shift in temporal framing. The representation encapsulates this adjustment within conceptual dependency, showcasing how the application of conceptual tense affects the interpretation of actions, shaping their temporal characteristics in the broader conceptual context. Conceptual dependency theory is a linguistic framework that represents the meaning of sentences in terms of abstract conceptual structures rather than relying solely on grammatical structures. Here is how each of the symbols listed might be interpreted within the framework of conceptual dependency theory. P for past. represents an event or situation that occurred in the past. F for future represents an event or situation that will occur in the future. T for transition represents a change or transition from one state to another. TS for start transition represents the beginning of a transition or change. TF for finished translation represents the completion of a transition or change. K for continuing represents an ongoing or continuous action or state. Question mark for interrogative represents a question or an interrogative sentences. Slash for negative represents negation, indicating that something did not happen or is not true. Nil for present represent the present moment of a current state. Delta for timeless represents a state or event that is considered timeless and not tied to a specific point in time. C for conditional represents a situation or action that is dependent on a specific condition. These symbols can be used to describe the temporal and contextual relationships between different events, actions and states in sentences. They provide a way to represent the underlying meaning of sentences in a more abstract and conceptual manner, which can be useful for tasks such as natural language understanding and generation. In the context of conceptual tenses, the sentence John will be taking the book can be symbolized as a future event with the subject John linked to the action taking or take. This represents the anticipation of John's action in the future. On the other hand, the sentence John is taking to book is represented as a current ongoing action denoted by the symbol K, indicating that John is presently engaged in the activity of taking the book. Both sentences emphasize the connection between John and the action, either in the context of an upcoming event or a current ongoing process. Semantic nets and conceptual dependency representation differ in their approaches to structuring and constructing meaning in linguistic frameworks. While semantic nets offer a framework for arranging nodes that hold information, conceptual dependency representation goes a step further by not only providing a structural framework for nodes, but also furnishing a distinct set of foundational elements from which representations of specific information can be formed. Semantic nets creates a platform for information placement, whereas conceptual dependency representation offers both a structural foundation and essential building blocks to create meaningful representations of various pieces of information within a linguistic context. Utilizing conceptual dependency grammar for knowledge representation and reasoning offers several advantages. The utilization of primitives or foundational actions within the organization of knowledge leads to a reduction in the number of required inference rules. This is due to the fact that numerous inferences are inherently embedded within the representation. The initial structure constructed to represent information from a sentence features placeholders or wholes such as entities like book or John, which act as focal points for attention and become the targets for further information in subsequent sentences. This approach enhances the efficiency of information integration and provides a more intuitive and streamlined method for capturing, reasoning and expanding upon knowledge within a conceptual dependency knowledge base. While conceptual dependency grammar offers advantages, it also comes with certain disadvantages for knowing representation and reasoning within a conceptual dependency knowledge base. One notable drawback is the requirement to decompose all knowledge into a fixed set of 11 primitives, which can be inefficient and even unfeasible for representing complex and diverse concepts. Furthermore, conceptual dependency is fundamentally centered on the representation of events, making it challenging to practically store and retrieve a wide range of knowledge beyond events. While an event-centered perspective of knowledge is possible, it may not be practically suitable for capturing the complexity of various types of information. This limitation can hinder the system's flexibility in accommodating different forms of knowledge representation and retrieval needs, potentially rendering it less suitable for comprehensive and diverse knowledge domains. Using conceptual dependency grammar for sentence reduction to canonical form presents certain challenges and disadvantages. Designing a program to accomplish this task could be intricate or even impossible. This is particularly evident with simpler structures than natural language, where probably achieving canonical form reduction is not feasible. Additionally, the computational process of reducing all sentences to their primitive constituents can be resource intensive and computationally expensive. This complexity could potentially hinder the efficiency of the system and make the practical implementation of conceptual dependency based sentence reduction cumbersome, especially in scenarios involving large volumes of sentences or complex linguistic structures. So, in this class mainly we have discussed about the conceptual dependency categories, conceptual cases and conceptual tense. Further, we have seen the comparison of conceptual dependency with semantic network, and in last we have discussed the advantages and disadvantages of conceptual dependency. In next lecture, we will discuss about uncertainty. Uncertainty is a fundamental aspect of human existence, permitting various aspects of life. It stems from unpredictable nature of future events and the complexity of the world. While it can evoke discomfort, it also catalyzes personal growth, adaptability and creativity. Managing uncertainty involves cultivating emotional regulation and flexibility. By doing so, individuals can navigate challenges with greater ease, view uncertainties as opportunities and lead more empowered and fulfilling lives. With this, we will end our today's lecture here. Thank you for your patience and we will meet in next lecture. Thank you.